has a strong focus on pilots and the testing of DPPs. But here today, we are looking on the sustainability and how to assess the DPP in this context. For this, we have 3 speakers in total. We have, there we go. We have 3 speakers with 3 agenda points. On the first one, we get a little introduction by Maria Gonzalez-Torres from the European Commission, the Joint Research Center. They had recently published a study on the DPP content for textiles. Then afterwards, I will tell you a bit on our work in Surpass 2, how to measure the sustainability of DPPs. My name is Eduard Wagner. I'm from the Fraunhofer IZM as a researcher working there. And then lastly, and I think the focus point today with a major block, the circular design standards in practice from Ina Budde, the Managing Director of Circular Fashion. With this, I would hand over to Maria for the first presentation.
Thank you, Edward.
You want to take over?
I think I'm trying to share screen. Let me know if it works.
It's
okay.
Coming.
So thanks a lot for the introduction. As explained already, I will be presenting the EU Digital Product Passport for Textiles, talking about the current landscape and future steps, with the caveat that all that I will present today is just a proposal, and it will not compromise the final decision on the final eco-design requirements, which are under development yet, and which will go through a whole process of further assessment and extensive consultations and debate. So starting, maybe setting a little bit the context, I will be speaking in the context of the ESPR, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, which is a framework directive. This means that it doesn't really set specific measures, but it rather enables their later adoption in delegated acts. These delegated acts are based on detailed preparatory studies and impact assessment, and my work actually relates precisely to this preparatory study. This is why I said that what I will present today is just a proposal, and it will be further impact assessed. Maybe in the next slide, we can see a little bit better where we stand in the process and what are also the next steps. In the slide of the indicative timeline, actually, you see just recent steps and the common ones, but the whole story started much earlier in 2023 with the beginning of the preparatory study. Early this year, we also launched the impact assessment on the Delegated Act of Textiles, which is running in parallel to the latest steps of the preparatory study. In Q3 2026, we will launch a call for evidence and the open public consultation of this impact assessment. We will also publish the final preparatory study that will support also the impact assessment. It will include what you may have seen already in previous milestone reports of this study, but also it will include a scenario analysis and the DPP aspects that are basically what we are going to talk in this presentation. Then the impact assessment is expected to be finalized by the end of the year. And throughout all this process, there are scheduled targeted consultations. And to this, it will follow an internal validation, further consultation, the adoption by the Commission of the Delegated Act at the end of 2027, with some scrutiny period and transition period to 2029. As I said, this is just indicative and might change according to the process. But setting now a little bit more, like focusing now on the Delegated Act of Textiles, the first thing is to talk about the scope, because we will focus only on apparel, including clothing accessories. Other textiles, such as technical textiles and home interior textiles, are left out of the scope. Also, footwear products, because they were not prioritized in the SPR working plan. Whereas actually for footwear, it's a product group that will be further considered in the midterm review of the working plan based on a scoping study to be finalized by the end of 2027. But now, moving to DPP for textiles. As Edward mentioned already, we have published a first proposal about the DPP content for the Textile Apparel Products Delegated Act under ESPR. It includes the GRC recommendations to support the DPP requirements. And I left in the slides the link to the current version of the study in case you want to have a further look. It is based on the MERP methodology, also including the latest additions such as the specific DPP method, but actually with a very tailored approach because the specific method was being elaborated while the preparatory study was already being performed. What you will see in the report is also the result of a selected stakeholder consultation for the readiness check towards this textiles DPP, including information on current industry practices regarding, for instance, which data is collected and on which granularity level, which standards and methods are most commonly used, which verification methods, also some qualitative assessment of the value and effort, and well, in the next slides, you will also see more in detail the proposal. All this needs to be taken carefully because it will be all further refined in the impact assessment, which will include the cost assessment and also broader consultation. In the slide, I also leave the link to register as a stakeholder to follow this process of the impact assessment. Now I move to the preliminary proposal of the data points of the DPP content. The slides are quite dense on the content, but what you can see here is just what the study already presents. So if you want to see it in detail, maybe better to refer to the study I mentioned previously. But I think that it helps to illustrate a little bit the current proposal. So talking on about product identification and classification, we are proposing as an optional data point the unique product identifier, whereas as mandatory data points, we would have a batch and model ID. Also, the product categorization according to the ESPR and according to the PEFCR, because it will help towards the verification of other data points that I will introduce later. Also, the community codes, the HS and TARIC. Then talking about producer identification, we include proposals for the manufacturer unique operator identifier, also the manufacturer name, postal address, contact information, also the unique facility identifiers, and if relevant, the same data points could also relate to the importer or other responsible operators. You see also on the slides the reference methodologies, but allow me to skip naming all of them for looking at the time also. We also include some product information. These are data points such as the fiber composition, the components specification, that in this case is again an optional data point, then the robustness score and some related data points for its verification, including test results for visual inspection, spirality, dimensional change, and conformity certification, of course. Then data points regarding substances of concern, its location, concentration, relevant instructions for the safe use, also information relevant for disassembly, reuse, recycling, and management at end of life. We also have the proposal for a recyclability score. Then data points related to the recycled content, and we specifically have the percentage, also the type of material of waste from which the secondary material originates. Again, some additional data points for the verification and correct implementation of these previous requirements. We include also some optional data points related to other EU law, and I mean here the content, the organic content, as related to the organic regulation, and also the EU eco label. And then we also have some data points related to the product footprint, whether the carbon or the environmental footprint will be finally proposed is still to be assessed. But we have data points related to the footprint related to a benchmark or a potential class of performance, or maybe even the absolute value. And finally, we have a final group regarding manuals and instructions, some of them again optional with an asterisk in the slide, but you can read their care instructions, repair instructions, contact of repair services offered by the brand, or guarantee duration. On the study, in addition to what you saw about the definition of data points and the reference methodologies, we also look at 3 additional and relevant topics. The first one, the granularity level. We propose for the data points regarding the product identification, we propose batch and model level, item level only as an optional data point, as you saw before. For producer identification, we would recommend to go through towards a batch level granularity. And for the product information, we propose specific data points at model levels, other at batch level, whereas the physical DPP will then be established at the finest granularity of all those. Then regarding the access rights, we differentiate between 3 different role models. We have established or recommended some public access rights for specific data points, such as the identifiers or product information that is relevant for consumer. Then we also distinguish some of them which will need to be established and shared only under legitimate interest, or also there will be some important data points such as the conformity certification to be shared only with the authorities for them to be checked. The study also touches some relevant topics on the roles and responsibilities, and also on the data acquisition and updates. But with this, I finished the initial preliminary proposal overview, but of course, I want to highlight again and remark what I said before about this being simply a proposal that will be refined during the impact assessment. And actually, there is a current consultation ongoing. You could scan the code to access the survey. If you want to provide your feedback on it, the deadline is the 10th of July. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Maria. We already have some questions. I would actually say as we are today focusing on the circularity assessment, I would just take up here maybe 1 or 2 questions that we can directly target now towards you, and then we continue. The other questions, please also put them in the chat, and we try to answer them afterwards, maybe within the publication of the recording and the slides. There's one question that is saying, does this mean that each product will have to have its own DPP with its specific unique serial number, while all the other data can be batch model level?
Okay, so in that, maybe I'll share the screen again so I can go through the so through the slides to illustrate what I'm saying. Actually, the current proposal is not to request the unique product identifier as a mandatory data point, but either as an optional data point, as you see in the slide. So what would be mandatory would be to identify the batches and the models, whereas the unique product identifier would be done maybe only by those who want to go since the beginning for a more ambitious scenario. So that's the current proposal. The serial number and the unique serial number would go only in as an optional data point.
Mm-hmm. The next question also is targeting the same topic. Data collection sits at batch model level, but the DPP itself is instantiated at item level, correct?
Yeah, the same. So the item level would be only optional. So for what will be required at the moment is only model and batch in data points. So since the finest granularity level being mandatory is batch, this means that the DPP would need to be defined at batch level. Then for those that optionally want to go further and want to identify their products at item level, then yeah, the DPPs will then go at item level, but that's not good. The requirement would how the requirement would look like now, but it would be simply an optional scenario for those that want to increase their ambitions.
Then maybe one last that was upvoted. Is there already a date or like a rough timeline when the delegated act will be published?
So if I now go back to the indicated timeline, the date could be I see end of 2027, but of course you can maybe look at the working plan, the ESPR working plan, where the indicative dates are published, but this is something that may change. I don't know, I'm a little bit out of the regulatory process. I'm more on the preparatory study, and this is what I can say most more certainly. That is that you should expect a final preparatory study by the end of the year, hopefully.
Okay, I would say we are also collecting the other questions. Maybe also you can have a look again into the slides. And maybe also some questions will be answered within the next phases. You know, like there are several phases required for developing the studies here, the impact assessment study and the preparatory study, and then finally the delegated act. There will be more presentations coming, more consultation processes. So stay tuned. And I think the other questions will also be then answered within this process. I will then jump to the next part of our workshop today, which is now presented by myself on the sustainability assessment approaches. You should see it now. Yes. So from Surpass 2, we are looking in the question, how can we actually include the DPP in the quantification of the sustainability? How sustainable is it, like in reality? That's a question we get quite often, but the approaches were not always clear because the DPP does not have a direct impact itself, right? It provides information to us, but we have to use the information for a sustainable purpose. And from this perspective, we were looking into several approaches. From a basic perspective, you probably know circularity and circularity indicators. Maybe you have heard the R strategies, but you probably also know the life cycle assessment, the LCA. And these are two approaches that can quantify sustainability. I want to highlight here the differences, that it becomes clear and that we are on the same page. So you see here, I structured here both methods towards several topics. And we start here, basically circularity assessment and life cycle assessment. The question is, of course, how circular is a product with a circularity assessment, and how much environmental impact has a product with the LCA. Usually, we always do a comparative analysis. So we compare a product in the base case scenario. And here we compare a product with the DPP scenario. So what does this mean? Let's look first on the life cycle assessment. The life cycle assessment, how it's like already in the name, looks at all the stages within the life cycle. So that means resource extraction, manufacturing, logistics, then use phase and end of life. And here we are looking at the environmental impact category, for example, CO2. That's a very common impact category for measuring the environmental impact. And here, if we want to now measure the DPP, we have to look, for example, at the functional unit of a product versus the functional unit of a product with the DPP, which means the negative and the positive effects. And here, for example, you see here in the lower part for the DPP, of course, we need an IT infrastructure or some server with data. I hear some background noises. Yeah, thank you. We might also need a DPP reader, for example, at recycling or the repairer. But on the positive side, we can gain some positive impacts in terms of CO2 by prolonging the lifetime. For example, now you saw it in the list of information requirements. Maybe we get information on repair contact information, which makes it easier for us to repair a product. And by this, if it becomes easier, it's more probable that we will repair a product, which will prolong the lifetime and reduce the production of new textiles. This for the LCA perspective. I now want to focus on today's topic more, the circularity assessment. And here we usually focus on specific aspects. These are usually from a circular economy perspective, you see it here in the strategy. These are the R strategies and that focus on specific aspects as mentioned or specific phases. Here, for example, it's repair, and here we can measure repairability, for example, with the standards, the European norm, the EN 45554 for repairability, but there are several other standards, also frameworks, and so on. So this is basically the main difference between the LCA and the circularity assessment. We have both in the task and within SURPASS 2. The report is also being written. The use cases are still conducted, and there we will also assess the circularity for specific products. It is ongoing, so you have to wait a bit still for the report. It takes quite a bit, but here today you will see the first use cases. Here, just to give you like a little flavor, we started with collecting a big overview of all the potential circularity assessment approaches. You see it here. We collected 64. Some were not suitable or some were hidden, basically because it was proprietary and we could not find any further information. But in total, we found 41 circularity indicators that were in scope, how to measure the circularity. Just to mention it here, not everybody, all of them were including DPP-specific aspects. And with this, I want to highlight maybe one example. Here, the circularity assessment with the repairability index of the French repairability score. You probably know it. There are 5 categories. Here on the left, you see them. First one, documentation. Second one, disassembly, access, tools, and so on. Third one, spare parts, availability. Fourth one, spare part pricing. Fifth one, specific criteria. And here you see in the second column, the subcategories. And there it gets quite interesting. For the first part, the documentation, we see the criteria is here, the availability of the technical documentation. And the DPP is not really increasing this availability, but it is providing a better accessibility. You see, It can happen that the documentation is already available on websites, for example. So the DPP would just access these available documentation already, but it's maybe not improving. So the same is applicable for the others. The ease of the assembly of a product is not really impacted by the DPP, right? So we have a design of a product. Some are easier to disassemble, some are more complicated, but the DPP is not influencing this too much. And here on the right, you see two subscores. The first one without the DPP, that is the current example of a washing machine we took from the French Repairability Index database. And for the right one, we assumed what would happen if we applied a DPP. And you see for most of these categories, the DPP won't have too much of an impact, at least for the repairability index. And this is already quite an interesting finding, I would say, because we see there is a shortcoming in some of the the circularity assessment approaches that we currently have. Some are reflecting the DPP a bit better, but some do not. And this is the work we are on. We have discussed and found some conclusions on several different circularity indicators and approaches. As mentioned, the report is ongoing, and in the end, you will see which one will have a bit more of a reflection of the DPP and which do not. We will also propose maybe some changes or which criteria should go in such indicators to reflect the DPP and the sustainability that comes with it. From this example, I want to now slowly hand over to the next part. Here to mention in Surpass 2, we are looking at 4 different use cases with 4 different partners and also 4 different product groups. We have washing machine, mattresses, apparel products, and tumble dryers. And here you see in the 3rd row, all of them are looking at different R strategies or circularity assessment approaches. This for now, we are still in the progress of conducting or working with the partners, conducting the circularity assessments, and everything will be documented then in the report. I want to hand over now to Ina to show the use cases from the circularity assessment approach for textiles. What we found is already including some major aspects of the DPP and found this as a good example.
Great. Thank you so much, Eduard and Maria as well, for some really great inputs and for setting the scene on this. I'm very happy to proceed now with a quite concrete application example of this, with the 2 standards of like the circular design standard and the circularity ID standard with an actual product. And I'm joined by quite a few colleagues here today in the call to give the full context of the methodology behind the circularity assessment. On the one hand, Therese Kramsch is here from the perspective of circular inputs and recyclability, as well as Alberto Rothenburg about designing for durability and longevity. And then we also aim to include the brand perspective, and Otto planned to join with Lisa Franke here today, but short-noted circumstances made them not available to join. So we are happy to share on their behalf a few learnings and the voices of the brand perspective by Jonna joining as well, Jonna Heckblom from Circular Fashion. And so before we're diving very deep into this, just to share a little bit, our agenda. So we will explore different, or like the circularity assessment results and methodology, and kind of how they're driving the use cases for the DPP on circularity. And of course, this is all happening in the Surpass 2 context. But we take an example of a previous, project and product of Otto, which we will go through for this assessment, because it already has been on the market. It went through the whole life cycle already until kind of also targeting the end of life and sorting. So that's why we're taking this one here. And before we're diving deep into the standard and the use case, just a few words about circular fashion for the ones that do not know us yet, and the standard. So the standards basically evolved over quite a time. I think we started almost 10 years ago with the work for it. And we launched the Circularity ID standard in 2019. That was still a time where the term DPP wasn't that coined that much, but we really had the feeling that it was super needed for the industry as well, having already a common definition of circularity and how to actually validate products against enhanced circularity and what data is actually needed to do that, and to also power circular life cycles of products. And that's also why we established a platform and a certification system that now is also a third-party system and integrating as well solution for other compliance topics here. And a big part of our work is essentially as well implementation support and ecosystem work. So we accompanied over the time lots of different organizations and trained many professionals on the topic. And those learnings also were really valuable for us to contribute in shaping the transformation, but also providing input to the various consultations and projects that we are working on this topic. And so, that's really kind of from the ecosystem work, getting feedstock requirements from recyclers, sorters, and everything that kind of was integrated into the standards, into platforms that we also are very eager to collaborate on with many other solution providers, creating also digital ecosystems there, and kind of scaling through knowledge and partnerships there as well. So that's just a little bit the background. And regarding the two standards that we're looking into today, on the one hand, the Circularity ID standard is really a data set and a data standard that is there to drive product data for verification of circularity and also more circular decisions in the sorting space. So really data to power circularity, and kind of would be the equivalent to more like the information requirements that will be set out in the ESPR. And the circular design standard is more providing actually the level of circularity and achievements there. So really assessing the circularity performance, so equaling more to that part. And looking into the framework, it is built on 4 different pillars, 3 of them being on the product level. So it's about circular inputs with safe inputs, recycled and renewable inputs, designing for recyclability with the open recycling system, meaning the predominant operational system, but also having the opportunity for partner recycling systems when there is actually an ecosystem established by a specific brand for a specific material cycle. And then also designing for longevity with physical durability test, the repairability part, and aesthetic and emotional durability. And then on the 4th pillar, this is really the system level, where from our perspective, the DPP would also be located in, so kind of really data for circulation, providing the necessary information towards consumers, towards sorters, engaging the customers, and also system for circulation, meaning building the ecosystems around it, like recycling partnerships, and that also producers and brands can take their role and their responsibility in the whole ecosystem in building that. And of course, we haven't built that on our own. We have a quite large network of extended advisory network, but also a governance board. And the governance board is around 30 parties. Here's only a few examples of them. And we kind of include every kind of recycler's perspective, sorter's perspective. So that's really an intense work to lay the foundation for this. And the system itself is it's a EU IPO certification mark with a third-party system for the verification. So to really separate the standard setting, which is led and guided by us on circular fashion side, from the certification, which is done by partners like It Fits or Control Union. And yeah, that happened overnight. So not overnight. So since quite a few years, we're working on this. So we are in version 6 at the moment. So quite a few revisions have been taken in the time from 2020 to 24, and the certification system being launched in the last year. And now we're kind of further evolving the standard. And aligning it further. Quite a few products have been verified already, and a few front runners actually being able to scale to a very high extent. So like around 10% of their whole assortment is actually verified. For example, Marco Polo is one of them. And that really shows that this certification is also scalable. And I think it wouldn't be scalable if it wouldn't be a digital assessment and like really presented in a lean way for them. So that's kind of the backbone of it. You can also download the standard. It's publicly available here if you scan the code, and the platform is also the one that we used for the use case, basically to, on the one hand, analyze the portfolio, like which products are actually qualifying well for a circularity assessment and certification, then the product assessment and certification itself, and then the labeling as like a result of that. And so the certification has like eligibility criteria. So here are the listed apparel and like product types and fiber types that we can assess and certify. So this really matches with also like the PEFCR product categories and the ones proposed as well. And before we really look at the criteria, we just wanted to also share a bit how we see this assessment in comparison and context of the evolving regulation that is there. And I mean, for most of you here joining in the audience, I think you're really familiar probably with these frameworks. And now we see different ambition levels of circularity parameters, whether it's being the ESPR, which targets like minimum requirements, or the Waste Framework Directive that is looking into eco-modulation with economic incentives going beyond that minimum. And then also the Empowering Consumer Directives being really like the highest ambition level of going beyond compliance and having enhanced circularity that is credible enough to actually claim and label about. And that's basically what the initial starting point for the circular design standard is, to kind of really provide a robust system in verifying beyond compliance. But we also learned now in the further evolvement that it actually created quite a big value to also translate it into contribution for the other frameworks, which we're doing at the moment a lot. And the same for Circularity ID, which also has lots of values for the other parts. And here's as well like a short overview of kind of mapping a little bit the current proposed data points with how it is already contained in those standards. And we see like the different topics that Maria has presented in the very beginning, from product identification over the chemical properties, recycled content, etc. And that kind of most of the elements either match or exceeded a little bit. Regarding recycled content, for example, or the other scorings, or it's like an option to choose from in the standards. And now to the actual product. So we have chosen the product, a circular pen, circular culotte in black from the company Otto, which was part of a project that we led implementing circularity in the industry. And this is really about bringing together brands, manufacturers, sorters, and recyclers to get ready for the upcoming regulations. So it is not just producers piloting DPPs or pilots or certification, but like really integrating it into the full cycle. And that's, I think, also the value of how we can show the different use cases that the DPP actually should have in this project. So we also are involved in a Lighthouse, a pilot in Surpass too, but since they are still in evolvement, we wanted to take this example of a product that is already on the market, and where we can have these learnings as well from users as well as the end of life. So that's basically the scope. So from the certification part, the circularity assessment, the DPP pilot, as well as sorting integration, we've covered that. So actually in the project, we also established sorting stations that are DPP powered and can basically read that, have access to the data to show how it would work in real life in sorting. And through that, we can cover, as mentioned before, the use cases that were presented in the report. On the one hand, the B2C use cases at point of sale and the use phase. So more sustainable purchase decisions, maintaining the apparel, self-repair, etc. And then on the end-of-life part as well, the sorting, the second-hand market resale, etc. And I think what we will see in a bit when we look at the results is that, of course, the first part of the design stage and the assessment and certification are really crucial to actually enable beneficial use cases here. So like whether substances of concerns are involved or recycled content, recyclability and durability is involved. This, of course, has a major influence on more sustainable purchase decisions, etc. So yeah, that's just a bit the backbone of how we actually have done the assessment. And now I'm very happy to hand over to Therese to guide us through pillar 1 and 2.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ina. Hello from my side. Yeah, let's jump right into the framework. And just a quick reminder for you. So pillar 1 to 3 are product level criteria. And we're going to start obviously with pillar 1, which covers circular inputs. And we define circular inputs that they are free from hazardous substances and are certified, recycled, and or renewable. And in detail, that means with safe inputs, we want to ensure that there are no substances of concern present in the product. So we only allow safe chemicals to be used in the production of the product, but also ensuring that in the final product, there are no substances of concern because they can be a problem for later recycling. And so what a product needs to do is that it complies with a recognized chemical safety standard, like a restricted substances list or manufacturing restricted substances list. And you might have heard of zero discharge of hazardous chemicals, MRSL, but we also allow A-firm, blue sign, and other standards, and also allow fiber-specific standards. And an example here would be GOTS. And then if you have ensured that all of your inputs are safe, we have requirements for preferred inputs. So both recycled and renewable inputs are considered preferred inputs. And in your product, you can mix them, but in total, the minimum share of preferred inputs needs to be at least 90%. And for recycled inputs, we have set fiber-specific minimum recycled content thresholds. They are between 20 to 100%. And we have this variety because this depends highly on the fiber type, but also on the source. So if you have post-consumer or post-industrial feedstock, or also open or closed loop feedstock. And we have a list with recognized standards. One example would be Global Recycling Standard. And in some cases, we also accept feedstock declaration. And regarding renewable inputs, they also need to be certified to a list of recognized standards. So this could mean to use organic cotton instead of conventional cotton. And just to give you a sneak peek into our standard document, so this would be the PDF version, not the digital platform we use. But here you can see you have a lot of details about all of the inputs, and for example, this table with all of the standards that we recognize for recycled and renewable inputs. And yeah, maybe Ina, you can tell us now how our recycled content thresholds relate to the proposal of the JRC study and other use cases.
Thank you very much, Therese. Absolutely. So just a short comparison, so you also know a little bit maybe how feasible it would be, like from an implementation point of view. We compared like the thresholds from the third milestone proposal, and as you can see, most of them are either matched or exceeded. And we also have introduced a few more for the man-made cellulosic fiber parts or silk, as well as the natural cellulosic fiber parts. So yeah, in the design options, I think cotton was the same. And then we also introduced different thresholds, whether it's like polyester from non-textile source or actually from fiber to fiber source. And now we would love to share a little bit how this looks like for the product and the use case on those two levels. So like on the first one here. So basically after product creation, regarding inputting the material composition, selecting the product type, the specific criteria are presented, and the product has to comply with the specific criteria for that product type, for the construction, etc. And this product complied with like all of the necessary things in Pillar 1, so safe input through the GOTS certification, renewable inputs as well, with like 90%, more than 90% preferred GOTS organic certified input, no filling material, etc. That would have other requirements, and then also like there is recycled sewing thread included, but yeah, just that's something going beyond the necessary here, because with renewable inputs, it would already be complied. And yeah, and then the DPP value given by this is like more sustainable purchase decision, but also like facilitating sorting, because those information that are already captured here really are the foundation to afterwards make proper sorting decisions for recyclability. So that's just a starting point for that. And with that, over to you again, Therese, for Pillar 2.
Yeah, thank you. So in design for recyclability, we have these two pathways, and it's important to note here that you have to fully comply with one of them, so there's like no mixing possible. But in general, we define design for recyclability in that the product has to be designed to be recovered and recycled back into new textiles. This is very important. At the end of its usable life, instead of being disposed of as waste. So first, we're going to have a look at the open recycling system. And as Ina already mentioned, this requires a product to be compatible with the existing infrastructure we have nowadays. So like the publicly available collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructure. And we came up with a quite a comprehensive list of criteria. And this is based on conversations we had with recyclers over the past years in terms of to what they can and cannot process. So first, we look at material composition. For example, like a product cannot be made from more than 2 fiber types. We have fiber-specific minimum shares, but also requirements for fiber blends, including elastane. Second, we have requirements for surface decorations, on limitations on type and size, but also we exclude some surface decorations that could damage the recycling machines in the end, such as metal or glass. And next, we look at finishings. A very common problem are durable water repellents, because they usually are made of PU or PVC, and these coatings or laminations, they cover the fabric surface and are disruptive for recycling. Then we also cover trims. So hard trims like metal should be limited to functional hard trims, like only using the ones you really need. And textile-based trims that contain stretch fibers needs to be aligned with the material composition of the overall product, so the total share of elastane is not exceeded in a product. And then lastly, if a product has a filling, it has to be made from one single fiber type, for example, polyester. And if you want to use a feather or down filling, this is only possible in a partner recycling system, because at the moment they are really hard to go through the open recycling system, and this is a great transition to the partner recycling system. Because if you have a partner recycling system, this means that your product is made for the specific requirements of a recycling partner and the operational infrastructure of this partner recycling system. And first, so this means that your recycler gives you like very specific feedstock requirements. And yeah, this will in the end determine, for example, your material composition or like what trims you can use. But we don't only look at the feedstock requirements, but it's also very important that the right partnerships are in place, because it's not only the recycler that needs to be on board, but also like collectors, sorters, and pre-processors. So this, if you go for the partner recycling system, this is also connected to the fourth pillar of our standard and needs to be validated again in the fourth pillar. And yeah, Ina, how does it look like for, I forgot this one. Yeah, this is how it would look like in our standard. So you can see, for example, this matrix where you can check which fiber blends are possible. And also you have an overview of all of the criteria for recyclability. And then, yeah, Ina, walk us through the recyclability index.
Great, thank you so much, Therese. And yeah, just to share a little bit how this compares to the design options and the recyclability score presented in the proposal of the third milestone. So here, regarding the elastan share, our framework would exceed that, because we limited at 5% at the moment, because from our learnings, this is like really the predominant common denominator for most of the recyclers, and like depending of the fiber type, of course. So we have different ones per fiber. And then like the other ones, like coatings and sequins, they match really well. Regarding printings, dyes, etc. This is like an option to kind of either like have no prints or actually reduce the prints to prints that can be handled by recyclers. So for example, dye-based instead of pigment-based. So here we have different options, and we have a few criteria that are exceeding. So for example, trims and disruptors, as well as the filling, which we saw as like a really important one, the filling aspect as well. But yeah, all in all, if a product would be CDS certified, it would actually reach a recyclability score of around a 9. I mean, depends, of course, a lot regarding the dyes. That's a big element. But yeah, that's kind of the result. And looking into the product and the use case that we have here, the use case, succeeded in all those strategies for the open recycling system. So it is fine for mechanical as well as chemical cotton recycling, has enough minimal material of cotton, less than 2 fiber types, and no exceedance of the elastan share, as well as no filling, obviously. So, and that's presented to the users as well in the interface, that this is like a recyclable product, and therefore again it pays into the more sustainable purchasing decisions, and also saves again more information to facilitate the sorting in a high qualitative way for recycling. And with that, I'm very happy to lead over to Alberta now to guide us through the pillar 3 on longevity.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're changing the focus a little bit now. This is still very much product related and design related, our pillar designed for longevity. And we have 3 different sub-strategies within this pillar. We always have physical durability as a mandatory strategy that a product must comply with. And then you can select between either repairability or aesthetic and emotional durability. And how we design for longevity is to prolong the lifespan through optimized physical durability and facilitating either future repairs, or design for aesthetic and emotional durability with the intention of enabling higher frequency and of use and active length of use. And if we first focus on the quality and the durability tests, as Ina mentioned a bit earlier, the product categories that we are using is also aligned with the PEFCR. The requirements in the CDS is that the product must either meet or exceed the test results that is applicable to the product type and the fabric construction. So we differentiate between a woven product or knitted product, and also fully fashion knit. We also categorize our quality and durability tests in 2 different sections. One we called the required tests, and these are very much aligned with the JRC proposal as well, of dimensional stability after washing and drying, spirality after laundry, and appearance after washing. And we require these tests to be conducted after 5 wash cycles, also aligned with JRC, but with the exception of denim being after 3 wash cycles. But besides having these required tests, we also, depending on the product type and the fabric construction, we also require an extensive list of risk-based tests. And this really depends on the product. So they're not all applicable in all cases. This also includes color fastness tests and functionality tests as well. But there is an extensive list depending on the type of product under certification. And then if we get a bit more creative on the next, go ahead. There is a little sneak peek here of how it looks like in the CDS. Here we have an example of a t-shirt, a cotton sewn knitted t-shirt, so a very classic product. And this has 3 required tests as well as 5 risk-based tests. And then if we get a bit more creative, we really have a section of the physical durability that is heavily design driven. We call this the physical durability design strategies. This section is also fragmented depending on the product type, fabric construction, and use cases, and may include seams, reinforcements, components and trims, fitting constructions, and then requirements of no intentional signs of distress. There are also specific denim criteria to avoid specific prohibited chemicals or processes for washing effects that may abrade the fabric surface and compromise the durability. And here there is a bit more flexibility because we know with physical durability, when it comes to the product and the construction, it's not one size fits all. So there is a bit more flexibility in this section for the designers and product developers of really choosing what does influence the physical durability of the product. And on our next slide, we have repairability, and we actually have repairability in 2 sections of the CDS. So Ina will also touch upon it on a more system level, but here we really focus on repairability on a product level. And we have 3 different strategies for that: either spare parts, replaceable components that really goes beyond trims, but it's rather exchanging elements of the garments that might wear out first, and then enabling future alterations. And this is just some of the options that you can choose from, but it might also be that some products is not really targeted for repairability, but they would instead be targeted at our other sub-strategy that we call aesthetic and emotional durability. Next slide, please. Thank you. And aesthetic and emotional durability also has a variation depending on the product. So one of the examples is, for example, carryover products, really having never out of stock products that are carried over through multiple seasons, both giving loyalty or availability to the customer, but also really focusing on stock and production demands. But we also allow some more versatile use. So this includes modularity. And then we also have features for timeless design, which is, of course, something that is difficult to measure. It's also something that JRC acknowledges that it is a very important one, but it's also one that is still hard in the industry. But we find it very important to include these aspects as support of the physical durability as well. But as I said earlier, this is a optional strategy if you don't design for repairability. And if we then compare a little bit, especially the comparison of the quality and durability tests, of course, if we compare here the 3 tests that the JRC includes in the robustness score, dimensional stability, spirality, and appearance after washing is all in the CDS as well. We do have some slight changes in our thresholds in the CDS, being a little bit more strict. And then we have these additional risk-based tests. So, and then of course we have the design strategies of physical durability, repairability, and aesthetic and emotional durability. So this is just to compare that in some aspects we either offer more or have a bit more strict requirements. So comparing what a potential CDS certified product, how it would score in the JRC robustness score, is approximately around 8 to 10. So this is just to give an example of an idea of how to compare. But Ina, you can show us a bit more how that fits with the DPP use case as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alberta. Yeah, so here we see that the product that we have taken complies with the different requirements on physical durability with all the tests. We also see like the appearance after washing, that there are like lots of different requirements for the different results, but all completed. And then also there were conducted 3 more risk-based tests on 3 ISO norms. And yeah, then regarding the physical durability, Otto has chosen to reinforce pockets on this pants, and then there's also some elements on timeless design on this product, as well as like adjustability in size with strings there. And this kind of brings a lot of DPP value again in terms of more sustainable purchasing decisions if the customer really understands what additional value they get if something has like an enhanced durability property, but also for second-hand and other options to facilitate repair. There are learnings on the different things on how to do it. And with that, we're coming to the last and 4th pillar that I'm happy to shortly present as well, because it has to do a lot with like the system level again and the DPP topics there. So I'm happy to go through the requirements of that system level aspect. So generally in the 4th pillar, we really have requirements to embed the products into systems that drive customer engagement and that increase the use and really also enable closed loop recycling. All of that supported by data transparency. And there are 3 different strategies that can be chosen. So on the one hand, data for circulation. So really knowing the value chain, get ready for DPP, not just for transparency, but also really to power circularity. Customer engagement, guiding customers through care instructions, enhanced care instructions, repair and return. And then the system for circulation, so building take-back systems, repair, recommerce, and recycling partnerships. Brands don't have to fulfill all of that. It's really important that they kind of start where they are, and the implementation can bridge from like an action plan to implementation. However, for certification, it is of course important to have at least 1 implementation and 1 action plan to start with and increase the readiness for it. And looking into the first strategy, data for circulation, they have the choice between either value chain transparency, tier 1 to 3 for now, and like really to prepare the data availability, or a little bit more advanced to pilot a DPP use case with data based on either the Circularity ID dataset or equivalent, machine readable and accessible to the necessary users. The data carrier type QR, NFC, or RFID, and with a few requirements on the durability, the placement, and the function of it. And then the system interoperability and data access to power the circulation. And in the second strategy, it's about guidance for product care. So here it's really going above and beyond the textile labeling regulation and really give even more care instructions and support to really maintain the product well, or to go for guidance for product circulation. So information on the disposal of non-rewearable garments and otherwise services if the brand is maybe offering certain services. And then the last strategy about the ecosystem part. Here it's really about increasing the collection. So beside the soon coming obligation to engage with like a PRO, brands can engage in like enhancing take back and really offering something special to the user, or increasing the use through certain services, repair, recommerce, or rental, and increasing the recycling through partnerships with targets, offtake agreements, or simply partnerships for R&D or setting up the infrastructures. And here as well, like we made a little comparison on, again, like the data points that were proposed to potentially include. So regarding care, repair instructions, we capture that. Repair is one option of others, so it's like not mandatory. But also if it's like a warranty, we also ask for a higher warranty than the 2 years. And yeah, guidance for circulation, recycling partnerships, that's something that we additionally require. So yeah, and regarding the product, they're ticking many of those boxes. So the DPP itself, regarding the data carrier, they have chosen a combination of QR code and RFID to facilitate, on the one hand, the customer interface, as well as the automated sorting. So that has been a very successful combination. They also have guidance for product care as well as circulation. They offer a take-back service where customers can send in the products free of charge and get a shipping label, and have like an own re-commerce platform, or like a second-hand partner for that, going through to the charitable sorters, Platz schaffen mit Herz in German. So that's their offer here. And so from the DPP value on the right side, in this product, I would say basically, again, more sustainable purchasing decisions if the users understand what's the value behind and how they can also engage with the circulation. Maintaining the product, the repair ones are not included here, the ones that are left white, and then, yeah, secondhand and facilitating sorting is also operated through the platform of the Circularity ID. Yeah, and with that, I would love to conclude the use case, and just to mention that when we speak about circularity assessment, sometimes it's also, yeah, different if it's like a binary assessment or actually like a scoring system. And we, for the certification, take the approach of a Boolean choice of like really having, on the one hand, like complying with all of it, what is necessary or not. But we also saw a big value in actually developing the CDS framework towards a scoring framework to also support further development of different frameworks that are needed for the regulatory context, and to provide a contribution to that as proposals. So kind of, yeah, that's something that we're working on, and we're also super excited about to engage further in if anyone is interested on that end. Yeah, and with that, I would love to lead over to Jana, who is so kind in taking over the brand perspective and share a few insights from Otto and the team that implemented it. We chose Otto here as well because they're working with like product verifications already since 2020, and the Circularity ID they first did in 2021 from the first time. So I think quite some background and learnings, and so very happy to give over to you, Jana, now the floor to share a bit about that.
Thank you, Ina. And just to say, because I know there are also a lot of questions in the chat, but there will be a Q&A just after these next few slides. But happy to be here and present on behalf of one of our brand partners, Otto, who unfortunately couldn't be here last minute. But the key message for Otto is that CDS, the Circular Design Standard, and the Digital Product Passport are levers for circular economy, which the pilot confirms for them. It confirms the feasibility, but scaling is more difficult as it's heavily reliant on system integration and all the different partners, and I'll come back to this point. And Otto decided to join this pilot as a practical test of circular infrastructure with DPP, their first test of DPP, as Ina said. It was also a way to build internal know-how and also position themselves around innovation. They also wanted to understand system dependencies along the value chain and derive from this pilot a scalable roadmap from that, so that they could also have a roadmap for how to prepare for upcoming regulation. And on the potential side of this, here's how they see it in Otto's views. So CDS and DPP can form the basis for a circular industry standard to enable this end-to-end circular flow from the design of the product to the use of the product to enable recycling at the end. And they also note that the impact is the highest when it's combined with circular business models in terms of take back and so on. And then in their words, they show the pilot shows that it is technically feasible, but not yet implementable at scale. And again, this is due to limitation by this missing system integration. And what I want to add from our side, and I think it's been touched upon like many times during the presentation, but it's that shared standards and frameworks and definitions really lies the base, or they close this gap of a challenge of system integration as the partners more easily can work together. And over to the next slide, Ina, please, is how Otto is how they enabled circularity by using this pilot. And the key message here is again, with circularity only works as a system, and the pilot shows that the interaction of design, take back, DPP, and partners is operationally possible. And they break it into 4 building blocks, each with the circular impact it unlocks. So first, design for recycling. For Otto, that meant looking a lot at design principles that we also heard from Teresa and from Alberto, but design principles for monomaterial and for durability and modularity. And the effect, the circular impact that we can see from that is, of course, that products do become recyclable, and that they would also have would re-enter the cycle at higher quality at the end of their lives. And second, Otto has a take-back system with a German name of it, making space with heart, I think is the correct translation. But that's what drives like the return of the products and also secure those collection flows from them. And then they work on customer communication, so bringing the customer, the user of the product, sharing information and guidance on how to return products in an easier way. And the impact of this is to have more active customers, and also key is to use the right return channels for the different products. And lastly, the fourth piece that ties this together is then the digital product passport and having that partner network and enabling data for sorting and recycling. And the impact of this is to have improved sorting through transparency, through that data sets, and to enable recycling. So I think a key takeaway from Otto, and also very important finding for us in this pilot together with Otto, but also something that we see with other brands, is that for scalability, the system is key and the partners is key. So, and for that system to connect and integrate with each other, with the partners, these common frameworks and shared definitions and shared data and standards are essential, so that a product designed for circularity, for example, can be understood and recycled and sorted by another company at the end of the value chain. Brief from Otto's word, and with that, I will hand over to you, Edward, for a Q&A for all participants.
Thank you very much. Also, thanks from the audience. I see the very positive feedback already. And we also have some questions from the audience directly written here. Maybe, so if I see it right, we have questions targeting like Maria, some for the legal requirements, but also for the practical part. So for the practical part, I think, Ina, what is the current usage of your standard? I think you already had a slide on this. Maybe what is the usage now? What is the uptake in the future?
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's quite many brands using it. We have a couple of hundreds of products being certified with it, and kind of the I think I mentioned the largest scale of one being like around 10% of the portfolio. So it is like some companies are starting with like a few products, like 1 or 5, to really trial it out, and others are already more like on the scaling side. So I think there is both parts, but definitely already in use quite a lot over the years.
Great. Then we have one question on the SOCs, so substances of concern. And this is quite not defined, right? You indicated some, but the comment here is that it should be rather stated that you comply to a standard rather to the legislation, because it's not defined in legislation yet. Yeah, I think that's a valid comment for now. I'm not sure, Maria, do you know when there will be some elaboration on the substances of concern, like a list for specific, for the specific sectors?
No, I don't think that there will be a list, to be honest. But yeah, let's wait for the final for the next steps and following next publications. But I think, as far as I understand, there won't be a list. It's on the manufacturer to understand based on the definitions, which are the substances that they need to report.
Great, thanks. Then the next question, are there companies planning closed loop recycling systems? And this is also a question I often hear that I'm wondering about, to which extent the DPP can really improve the textile recycling. I think with a holistic system as yours, it has can have quite an impact, but are the recycling companies also open to use the DPP and the information in it?
Absolutely. So I would love to maybe bring two perspectives to this. So generally, like the questions are companies planning closed loop systems? I also would love to see it a bit from the producer side, because here we see definitely a lot of engagement of, for example, we had like a project with Peak Performance. There's also like a press release that we could share about it that kind of really builds a product for this kind of partner recycling system and designing like outerwear, for example, with recycled down and other materials, having disassembly partners in the middle and pre-processing towards like recycling as well. And I think that's like a really great example of how actually producers are engaging in building the ecosystem that we still need, that we then can, as like a blueprint, use as well for other products and build it really up. So I think that's one approach that we really observe and see and support highly. And then on the other end, regarding the sorting and recycling element, I think looking towards enhanced sorting, there's of course happening a lot, and I think here it's really about merging different technologies together, from like NER, like visual detection, as well as AI powered sorting visually, plus the DPP. So I think it will most likely be a combination of it all that really will foster the best result. But we do see engagement as well for DPP-based sorting. So there is Verwertung as an umbrella organization for the charitable sorters that have already established the sorting station that works with our Circularity ID platform. So I think there are like some pilots on this, but I think it will still take some time until this infrastructure is really widely established. And I think this is also what Otto meant with the system integration, because I think in some areas system integration is already a bit more far ahead, with like integrating, for example, with PLM systems of the producers, getting the data. I think here system integration is already far, but then when it comes to the reverse supply chain, the system integration still needs to be enhanced and further rolled out. So that's our perspective to this.
I think it's quite interesting because it's always the question, like, which impact does it have, right? And this is also the question we are following in this impact assessment. And sometimes it's hard to say, like, does it really make an impact if we provide the information? Do, for example, consumers would use the information? But from this perspective, we see the systemic change. If we provide the information, then the industry or the system will follow up. Then we have another question from Marc-André. We're also working closely with in Surpass 2. Marc-André, maybe if you're there, you can ask directly. I think it's overall, if we should really...
I'll make it short, although it's a long comment, if you can hear me. No, my point was, it's actually interesting to see, because I'm a data guy. I like details and facts and so on, but looking at the practice where we are, and also complexity we anyway introduced with the digital product passport along supply chains, I was wondering whether to have all of these detailed data points directly in the digital product passport is actually helping. Even if you create, as you then put after my comment, a multi-criteria decision system, it still cannot capture really the specific pros and cons and benefits of the different recycled contents and whatnot. Why not, in fact, to put this all in the back room, so to speak, via a carbon footprint or environmental footprint that eases decision support via a single value that even the consumer can know what is better, what is less good. So why introducing the complexity in a new way into the core of the DPP itself?
I mean, I would have an opinion, but I'm also very happy to hear, like, also maybe from Eduard, having compared LCA and circularity assessments, right?
So from my perspective, it was really a little echo. So the recyclability, the circularity assessments are just picking out specific aspects, and not all are relevant for all products, right? For some products, it might make sense to indicate the recycled content, and for others, maybe organic content. So, and there, I think, same with electronic products, right? We are indicating the energy efficiency for products that consume a lot of energy. And from this perspective, it might make sense to have just targeted indicators. But yeah, of course, I guess, Marc-André, you're also right in the way that if we provide one indicator that sums it up, it can get a bit easier. We don't have that many variations of indicators. But from my perspective, also LCAs and PEF studies can get quite complex.
Yeah, sure. Acknowledge it's also complex. It's not like this would be LCA study would be easy and this would be complex. That's not. But I see that it because it's also there are many options. You can have different labels from different organizations and all of the complexity behind, and then you drag it along the supply chain to carry on also information along the steps from one actor to the next. And overall, I have the feeling it's always almost more complex even than LCA, but it's not giving this decision support level. But otherwise, if you can have a few single technical criteria that really matter most, then I'm a friend of having only those and no LCA. But I cannot see this for textile. This is why I brought this up. It differs by products. In some products, energy-consuming products, you can typically forget all the other things. Thank you.
Ina, do you want to add up?
I could add something shortly, but then I guess we have also many other questions still open potentially. Yeah, like I think I would agree with the fact that actually LCA is also quite complex and not like it's quite hard actually to mirror what actually needs to become brought across to consumers as well. And I think sometimes some concrete aspects that are really core to the user, like the durability or certain other aspects, are even speaking more to them when it comes to sustainable purchase decisions. And also the data points or the information of recyclability is highly relevant at the end of life. So there, basically, the LCA or certain score wouldn't really help so much, but really needs to be brought across for sorting and recycling, the recyclability part. So that's why we rather think it is very useful to present that as well and to include that.
Thank you. Then I think also another interesting question, any guidance how to balance the additional costs in the value chain? So what is the added value maybe? Does it pay off?
Mm-hmm. I think like I would see two main levers. I think on the one hand, brands that have made kind of first experiences with it and that really see strong signals from customers that demand more sustainable products. I think that's a very powerful experience for many brands, that they really see, wow, they're like there is a huge demand. People are sometimes even like open to invest more for a sustainable product, for a product that has like a better price per wear, for example, and like really more durability. So I think that's one aspect. But on the other hand, I think the EPR and the eco-modulation will be a super strong lever for this. And like really having economic incentives, creating a level playing field, I think is something that we see as almost the biggest lever for this. And that would be great if it's used in a very effective way. And that's why we also engage a lot to make proposals for harmonization, for using frameworks such as the CDS as a baseline potentially to bring that in. And we pilot a lot with brands on that. So if someone is also interested in that, trialing out what could be fee implications to a more sustainable portfolio versus a non-sustainable portfolio, I think this is also a big aha moment, I think, when looking into the eco-modulation and portfolio analysis on this level. Yeah.
Jana, did you get another input?
No, I just wanted to say what Ina said in her second point, but EPR is the regulation that will begin like repricing this. And for brands, I think it will become like they will design differently if waste has a price. So I think that really will impact the design. But yeah, Ina said it with EPR and eco-modulation.
Mm-hmm. So from this perspective, if we have an like EPR or if we have a robust indicator or robustness indicator, do you think also the market will change in terms of improving the product towards the robustness or recyclability?
Definitely. I think there are maybe 3 key levers to it, so it actually works. And we would see it like that. Of course, choosing the right criteria is key, and kind of having a harmonized system for that, because otherwise the effort will really exceed the benefit, most probably. The second lever, like really designing the fee structure in a way that balances the extra cost that the brand would have for a more sustainable decision. So let's say really quantifying what it means to put in recycled content and actually providing a bonus of the same height to really steer the demand for recycling content and all the other parameters, of course. And then the third one, I think, digital systems, and what we now have been speaking about today, DPP, but also platforms that really allow scalable assessment are key for it. That's also why we're engaging a lot with PROs, with brands that are interested in using this like early on, because we believe that making it very effortless is the key to really also benefit from all the incentives that will be offered.
Great. Then we have one question that's like targeting a bit, I think, the buying side. So also like suppliers. Do you think buying side will pay premium for countries like Pakistan if they invest on DPP? Any discussions in this direction?
I could definitely see that. I mean, we see with quite a few partners of ours that have basically frameworks to incentivize more sustainable production and other methods, and rather give the purchase order to manufacturers that are well positioned in sustainability, and also then potentially in DPP and ready for it, having a lot of information and data readily available. So I could definitely see that this is a great lever to position as a manufacturer, to be a good support for the brand in setting up such sustainable systems.
Then one question is, may I ask whether your standard is recognized by the current existing EPR, such in France, and give access to bonuses?
Mm-hmm. I mean, France is the only one that has actual eco-modulation right now. So, and I think it's not a system that is kind of changing rapidly. So at the moment, the standard is not recognized there. But we see that there is also like a revision of that modulation coming, and we're definitely very open to that and in conversations, because we believe that it would be really great to have more PROs engaging in that, but of course also the French one. And definitely.
Mm-hmm. Then maybe one or two last ones I see here. Do you also have a customer-facing DPP in your platform?
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not so sure the question regarding like in your platform, but we do have a DPP, like also the Otto product that we saw here today has a customer facing page. And yes, that is kind of also showing to the consumer the certification results and everything that we have seen today is presented to the customer.
Great. Thanks for all the input. I see we have some more questions here. Some are more technical. Maybe we manage to answer them afterwards. We collect them for sure. With this, I would say we come to an end of today's workshop presentations. Thanks for all the input. Thanks to the speakers and to everybody who participated today. Yeah, as you heard, we will have some follow-up presentations, some consultation that you can also follow up in the official work of the Commission and the JRC. And with this, I would like to thank you and wish you a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. The same for you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.